god, I love abysmal dog shit, so I'm so glad that I can fly the F4F Ice today, or the F4F KWS. This thing has been requested for, well, years at this point. They finally added, and it's, well, all I can say is Germany suffers, but this time it's not a Reddit clickbait post, this time it is actually somewhat unironic. Of course, it does have AIM-120s, these missiles are absolutely filthy, the radar is good enough, so you are able to get some kills with this thing. But God forbid you try to play the game, because if you try to get close to anyone, you are going to get your ass fisted. Now, if you are into that, be my guest. I'm not going to be shaming you here, this is your safe haven, but the F4F has to be played in a very particular manner. The same way you fly every other top tier at this point. You are forced to hold your distance, and you are forced to basically make it rain with your AIM-120s. Now, the good news is that the AIM-120s are, I'm not gonna say the best, we need to do a little bit more testing, but they are among the best, which means that you are able to get some kills. Now, there is a little bit of a compounding issue with a bad airframe. You might think, well, with these new top tiers, you never really have to play the plane anymore, so the airframe doesn't really matter, right? And yeah, to a certain degree, but the main issue comes from the fact that this airframe is so dogshit that it's going to hamper your ability to actually BVR. Let me tell you exactly why that is. The plane in itself isn't that quick, and a slower plane means less kinetic energy of the launch for your missile, meaning your effective range is going to go down. So in order to trade with someone that has AIM-120s, and yes, you heard me right, in order to trade, you need to be closer to them when you fire than they need to be to you. So they are inherently much safer. Once you start getting a little bit closer to them, however, once you start getting like at that 10-kilometer range, you are also going to struggle a lot harder to notch their missile after you launch. You also don't have an HMD, you need to put your nose back on the enemy or cycle through your radar, but if you are notching someone, I highly doubt you're gonna be doing that at the same time. The turn rate isn't that great, and this means that you have to turn out quicker, you are gonna take longer to reacquire the lock, and this just really puts you at a massive disadvantage with this thing. And that's why you just see me sitting at the absolute back of the map, slinging out AIM-120s, and this is the way that I got most of my kills. Now you can do two things. You can go back to the runway and just land, which is honestly the smart thing to do. Now of course we aren't very smart on this channel, so I try to make this thing work by actually contesting people, but you really, the fact that your plane is so stiff, the fact that you are decently slow, and just all the drawbacks compounded in this kind of meta just means that you are on the defensive constantly, and because you don't have the real ability to quickly lock onto people like at closer ranges when you're trying to pull back in, you basically just kill yourself by going near anyone. The F4F is of course one of the best phantoms in the game. Unfortunately it's at 12.7, essentially every game is going to be 13.0. And you just really aren't competitive here. Now I'll go into a rant in a little bit about adding this thing to Germany. But for now, I just want to take a look at the gameplay. And as you'll see, for the most part, I'm going to be hanging back. And I'm going to be showing you just how overpowered this plane really is. You just need to use it right. Just use your TWS, lock onto 4 people, guide the missile in nice and close. And once it is at like 15 kilometers, you can go for 16 because then it goes active. But having a little bit of leeway is always a good thing. Don't overstay your welcome though. Make sure to leave the AO. And if you do, I mean, sometimes your match looks like this. And when I say sometimes, I mean it. It happened once. The issue again here is because you're a little bit slower, your missile has less range, your team is going to beat you to most of your kills, which is another issue with this thing. It's not all bad. It of course has Agile Eagle. It has a pretty decent RW1 now. The radar isn't too bad. I do miss an HMD, which is actually kind of needed on a plane like this, because again, the reaction time is a little bit slow. So having an ability to lock on off-bore quickly, ergonomically and reliably would be a nice addition, but it won't really make or break this plane. It would just make it a little bit more bearable. Now there's a second way to play this, and that's by hugging terrain. And I don't mean multipathing, because your plane is a bit of a boat, so it's kind of annoying to do so and stay light on your feet. I mean actually using terrain. Now the issue is that 90% of your games are gonna be on Golan Heights, and you are not able to use any terrain, but on a map like this, you can, and I lock onto this F-15, he is relatively close, so we are gonna shoot the missile over the terrain, and then ourselves, well, we are gonna fly into the terrain. But yeah, I mean, the real way to fly this thing is by keeping people at arm's length and hope that your team basically wins the game for you. With the F-15 video, I made a remark where I said that, well, I like to shoot my missiles from a little bit of a closer range. So I like to just get a little bit closer so that my missile has more oomph to it and it's a little bit more reliable. With this thing, I recommend you to not do that if you get too close. I mean, it's just, you don't really have an answer to anything being shot your way. There's one small thing that I want to address and I'm kind of annoyed about. The Benelux subtree. Now, I understand that Benelux and France are like pretty close. I guess maybe Belgium and France, like half of Belgium speaks French. I get it. But the Dutch Air Force or the Dutch Army is essentially integrated in the Bundeswehr or the German Army at this point. So why is the nation that already has their own original top tiers getting an F-16? Why can't we add the F-16 to the German nation so that this might be there for people that want to fly it, for collectors or whatever you want to call it. But that Germany actually had a little bit of a competitive top tier. Right now, this is not it. And Germany is probably one of the nations that I would recommend you to grind against if you are flying top tier. Until they add the Eurofighter Typhoon, basically, you're not gonna have much right now. The MiG-29G was kind of okay. It was actually one of the better top tiers for a little bit. But right now, it is not that strong. R-27ERs are still somewhat okay. They are very hard to notch. But the enemy can just go cold. And if they go cold, they will just simply escape your missile. If they stay outside of your MAR, they're gonna have a very easy time. And as you're seeing in the background, the gameplay isn't really that interesting. I'm trying to keep people at range. I'm trying to get close enough to the point where my missile actually reaches them. It's a very double-edged sword. If you sit too far back, your missiles do nothing. If you get too close, you don't survive the game. Now, if you don't care about surviving the game and you simply want to get 1 or 2 kills, you can rush straight down the middle, lob off 4 missiles, and you're probably going to get a decent amount of kills that way. You are going to die every game, essentially. But if you're into that, if you want to just power grind, I guess it's okay. But at top tier right now, this is... I'm gonna say it's worse than the Tornado right now. Because the Tornado is actually a little bit quicker. But they're probably both going to be abysmal dog shit. I'm probably not even gonna touch the Tornado. I'm terribly sorry for everyone that's waiting for it. I really cannot be asked to make a second video like this one right here. It's gonna be the exact same gameplay. I am not getting any dogfight kills in this thing. I'm not getting any dogfight kills in the Tornado. The Tornado might be a little bit quicker. The Tornado might have more countermeasures. But it has a dog shit gun. It has basically the same missiles. It's really... It should... The plane is of course not completely unflyable. Because luckily, with these types of missiles... Well, I say luckily, but it actually kind of ruined top tier gameplay. At least right now, it's still somewhat okay. Because a lot of people don't have Fox trees. And if you are flying something with Fox trees, you might think, well, this feels quite alright. Just wait until you have to stock grind something and all your enemies do have these missiles. If you have a semi-active radar homing, you're forced to break off when they shoot at you. And they just get to shoot you for free. You try to turn back in to shoot another missile at them. Guess what? They shoot another missile at you. You're forced to turn out. And if you don't, you die. And if you try to return fire on them, their missile is already on the way. Your missile is going to be later. You explode. And guess what? The second you explode, your radar doesn't track anymore. So you won't even trade. Don't get me started on planes that only have IR missiles. Or God forbid, your stock. The game is going to be borderline unplayable. And the longer this meta develops and the more people get used to it, the worse it's going to be for both parties. Because if both parties play the BVR right, no one is going to be killing each other. If you don't have BVR missiles, you're simply going to die and you're not going to get any kills. You have to play passive and defensive for the entire game and wait people to get on you. And when people get on you, you get either IRCCM missiled or you get MRAM'd because, well, they can shoot it at point blank too. It doesn't have to be a BVR missile. Point blank, they're still incredibly strong. Yeah, this looks absolutely fantastic. Now, of course, again, if you apply your strategy that you can apply in anything, you might get some kills and you might outplay some people that don't know what they're doing. Just like this F-16 right here. I've been locking this guy up for a little while now. I've basically just been pretending that I don't have an active radar homing missile. And what do? We just shoot it point blank and then we pull out. And because I fired first and I can notch, boom, he dies and we don't. Trust me, We don't die, guys. We are completely fine and are never gonna be dying in the F4F Phantom because we are just absolutely goated. Yeah, I mean, there's really... I think it's okay if you play like one play in your nation and you only play the meta stuff and you're a meta chaser or you only like top tier stuff, and I get it. I get that you want a little bit more realistic gameplay, but you are not the only one in the lobby. There is a lot of people that are either free to play, people that are just grinding stuff, they don't have GE to buy the modifications, and don't even get me started on the modification cost. I spaded the F15C with my GE, and I only spaded the air ordnance as well as the performance. No things like the fire extinguisher and stuff, but just performance upgrades, the engine, the airframe, the wings and stuff. And I spent like 8,000 golden eagles. Now, you might say, why are you complaining about that? You have like 50,000. Yeah, but I make this content for the community, and I have to think about the community as well. This is straight up unacceptable. The stock grind is going to be absolutely impossible, and they're just making it so incredibly expensive now that you basically have to spend like 50 bucks to spade the vehicle. But you still need to grind it on top of it. If you are playing a dogshit mobile, you have to grind like 400k, and then you have to grind another 400k to spade the damn thing, while you don't have these missiles to compete with anyone in the meantime. So when I say that this change is absolutely dogshit, I'm not only talking about Fox 3 capable aircraft. Because they are able to cope with this just fine. Notching isn't an issue, going cold isn't an issue. It just makes the game extremely tedious, because there is more planes than just those in this game. But that's enough of a rant. Thank you for watching, and you'll see me in the next one.